In this video, I'm gonna give you the exact throwing programs that I use to go from 78 to 95 miles an hour. And even the throwing program that I'm following now to throw 100 miles an hour. And so I'm not gonna waste any of your time. So let's dive right in. All right, so for the first phase of my throwing program was when I was going from about 78 to 85 miles an hour. And what I actually did was mainly long toss. And so I didn't do anything really, advanced. I was kind of looking at what I should be doing to actually increase pitching velocity. And so I actually started with long toss, and more specifically, the Alan Jaeger long toss program. And so, this is something that I got introduced when I was watching Trevor Bauer with his come up and how he gained velocity. And, he'd be throwing, 300-400 feet before it'd actually go and play. And this was the first thing that I did was long toss. And also, when I was throwing 78, I was mostly a shortstop. And so this is kind of what my throwing program consisted of was, okay, I'll do my shortstop stuff, I'll do my long toss, and that was about it. There was no structure to it. But just by being a shortstop, I was pretty athletic, right? And so getting those athletic throws in was really, really helpful. And with the Alan Jaeger long toss program, it was just you're lobbing it and you're throwing it slow, 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 and giving it arc, arc, arc until you can no longer get it to the partner. So you're giving it a big arc, slowly taking your time going out. And these are, the throws are going like this, So if I were to actually draw it, it would be as you're going out, right? This is me. And, the throws would be like this. And it continues until I can't get it to the target anymore, right? And these are like, at the beginning, you're like super slow, like this, right? Is how far can you throw it without putting any effort in was my main purpose when I was doing long toss, was like how little effort can I put in to actually get it to my partner, okay? That was the biggest thing for my long toss. I did like long toss at the time, because when you're just starting to pitch and throw and get on a good throwing program and everything, long toss is a good way to start because, when you're throwing uphill, right, it does open up your arm and all of these ranges to be able to get up. Because if you're throwing here, you don't need as much range, but if you're really throwing uphill, then it opens up all of these things in your spine and even external rotation in your shoulder to be able to throw. Okay, and so I wouldn't say it's too great for like the actual mechanics of pitching, but it's good for general athleticism and general like being able to be good at actually throwing. Right? And so I wouldn't just do long toss, a bunch of long toss and be like, yep, my mechanics are going to be great, because that's just not how it works. But to actually start gaining velocity, start becoming a better thrower, I would say it's a good place to start, okay? Especially if you're a little bit beginner. But so you're doing all of this, right? You're getting it as far as you can with as much arc as possible. And then when you can no longer get it to the partner, your throws become like this. You're trying to throw it on a line. And it doesn't matter if it bounces. You're just trying to keep the same intensity and effort that you put in for your last throw. So it should be damn near close to like max effort, right? You're really trying to get it there. And that's the amount of effort that you're putting in, but on a line now. So it should be on a line and you're putting in the same amount of effort. And you shouldn't be able to get it to your partner on the full. It's okay if it bounces a couple times, but you just want to be able to convert all of this throwing up into actually throwing it on a line, similar to, when you're pitching. And so this is actually what creates that velo. And, it's like called the pull down phase. And this is what creates that arm speed, right? Because you're able to actually put all of that on a line. And so this is kind of what I started with, right? And I'll do this about 3 times a week, okay? And the big thing I would say about this is you want to use long toss as more of like an athleticism thing, not really like a pitching program type thing. So if I were to go back and if I were to long toss, even now, I don't really long toss too much because it's not my main focus. But if I would long toss, I'd be very athletic with it. So, it'd be like run and throw. It'd be like, pretend like a shortstop and throw, or like, I'm here and then I'm throwing different types of movements, to throw, just to develop some coordination, athleticism. the last thing you want to do is just long toss out of your pitching delivery like this. Because that's when, when people say, oh yeah, POs aren't athletes and stuff, I mean, that's just what sucks all the athleticism out of you. You want to continue to be athletic. You kind of want to feel like a shortstop at all times because that just helps you so much down the career. That's what I started with, 78 to 85. This was just basically just long toss and pull downs 3 times a week. And again, this is the evolution of what I did, but I will give you the recommended throwing program that I would recommend for you to actually follow, to actually gain velocity in the most efficient way possible. And this is what we do at the Pitch Lab. And so that I will give you at the very end. But this is kind of like the evolution that I did, right? But again, I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I'll give you what I would recommend at the end of the video. But with Alan Jaeger's long toss program, I like how he goes, listen to your arm. Just listen to your arm. It basically means if you feel good, then keep stretching it. If it doesn't, then just go light. So that's kind of what I did. There wasn't much structure to what I was doing, right? It was just, if I felt good, I would go long. If I didn't, then I would go short. And that just repeated, right? And so that's what I did. But for me to go from 85 till about 95, okay, I know this is a big jump. What I had to incorporate was high CNS type throwing and weighted balls, okay? And so there came to a point when I was throwing 85 and I was like, I'm gonna take my throwing to the next level. Like long tossing and not really having structure doesn't really make too much sense. And so what I actually did was starting to incorporate a little bit more of a structured program, which included, weighted balls and high CNS type throwing. And basically what I did, right? And again, this isn't something that I would recommend, but it's just what I did to actually gain pitching velocity. Again, I'll give you what I recommend at the end of the video. But what I did here was, what does high CNS type throwing mean? Well, it means that you're training the CNS, the central nervous system, right, to be able to throw harder by actually throwing hard. People say, I'm a big believer in if you want to throw hard, especially if you're not at like 90 plus level, then you need to start increasing intent and learning to actually throw hard and put intent into the ball, right? If you're throwing slow all the time, then the body has no reason to actually throw hard, okay? And that kind of changes when you get to the elite levels. But, for me, from going 85 to 95, I needed to learn intent and throwing hard and learning how to actually put intent into the ball at the right times and all of that. And so what I did with that high CNS was I did a pull down day on one day and then a plyo velocity day on another day. What this basically means is the first day with the pull down day, it's basically the same thing I did with the long toss, but now I'm incorporating weighted balls, okay? And so, I'll do the long toss, and then after the long toss, instead of actually doing this phase, I would get in front of, a net or something, have someone radar me, and then I'm doing this, but with maximal intent and recording my progress, right? And I would do this with like a 4-ounce ball, 5-ounce ball, and a 6-ounce ball. Okay, like three throws each. And, for the 5-ounce, it might be, okay, I got 95. All right, next one, trying to get 96. Boom, 96. And that's kind of what I did, was I was really trying to push the amount of output that my body could produce. Okay, and so and I started to incorporate weighted balls. And what the weighted balls actually do, I know everyone's super scared of them, but for the pull downs, right? The 4-ounce, the lighter you go, it trains more arm speed, okay? And it puts more stress on your arm because your arm is going at a higher speed, but it also teaches your body to move quickly, okay? So like if your arm is starting to move a little bit quickly, then it teaches that brain and unlocks it like, oh, that's what it feels like to move that quick. Okay, so that's what I was using the 4-ounce for. And then with the 6-ounce, it's a little bit on the other side where the heavier the ball gets, the more strength you need to be able to throw. And so that's what I was developing, the strength in your arm to be able to throw a heavier ball. Okay, and looking back, it was kind of like a brute force method, doing this high CNS pull down type stuff. But at the time, it was cutting edge stuff. That's what I did. I would record my progress. I would get my velos. This was once a week, okay? Maybe on like a Monday, this is what I'd do. And then I would try to beat it every single week. Okay, this week I got 95 on my pull downs. All right, next week I want to get 96. All right, I'm going to try to get 97. All right, trying to get 98. And obviously it didn't go like a linear progression.
but that's what I wanted to do. Okay, and same with the 4 ounce. I wanted to beat my 4 ounce every week, my 6 ounce every week, and so on. Okay, and so that was the pull down portion of it. Now with the plyo velocity, this was using something called plyo balls. Okay, and so these are rubber balls where it's a little bit squishy, and you're throwing them, and I'm also throwing these at maximal intent, okay? And the reason why I use these plyo balls is because when you're using a rubber ball, right, it's just giving you a different stimulus to the brain. When we throw baseballs, it's like the brain has such an ingrained pattern of how you should throw the ball that it's hard to make mechanical changes, right? But with a plyo ball, with a rubber ball, it's a lot more easy because it's like a different stimulus. The brain is like, oh, this is something new. We don't have such a strong ingrained pattern on how to actually throw it. And so, we can make changes easier. And so basically what I did was I would run through a bunch of drills that was supposed to help me with my mechanics. So it might be, a roll-in drill. It might be a rocker drill. It might be like a step back drill. All of these drills that I was doing that was actually going to help me mold my mechanics without me actually consciously thinking about it. And so that's what I did. That was what I did maybe on like a Friday. You always want to give yourself a lot of rest in between these days because it's very taxing on the body, very taxing on the arm. And so that's what I did. Once a week each, pull downs and then plyo velo, and then I repeat. And then after about 4 weeks of that, I might take a deload to actually give my body a rest, and then I would repeat, okay? Now, I do like this program, but it is very brute forced, again. Like I didn't even think about mechanics, I didn't think about anything else. The danger with this is that if you have bad mechanical patterns, right, and you're pulling down and you're like going like this, and you're throwing a heavier ball and your arm is flying out and everything, it can get dangerous, okay? And so that's why you do want to work on your mechanics to make sure that throwing at high efforts isn't a dangerous thing for you, okay? And if you need help with this at the Pitcher Lab, this is exactly what we do. We help you create really good mechanics to be able to throw hard from, and that's how our guys gain an average of 3 to 5 miles an hour, even more a lot of the times. And so that's what I did from going from 85 to 95 miles an hour. And I know that's a big jump, right? Like, 85 to 95, like a lot of you guys probably just want to get to like 95, and so you would want to follow this. But as I, gain more knowledge about these things and gain more knowledge about increasing velocity, see what works with our guys at the Pitcher Lab, with myself. I'm trying to throw 100 right now. I started to see a little bit more of a better approach. And that's what I'm using right now to get to 100%. And that's what I'm using right now to get to 100 miles an hour. Phase 3 is from me to go from 95 to hopefully 100 plus miles an hour. And what I'm doing there is mechanical patterning and more autonomous throwing programs. Now, what does this actually mean? Okay, so with the mechanical patterning, for me to go from 95 to 100 plus, it's all gonna be about mechanics, right? I'm extremely powerful, I have the arm speed, everything like that to actually be able to throw 100, but I need to piece it together on the mound, right? I need to be able to flow that energy in such a way to be able to throw at 100 miles an hour. It's not like a lack of strength. It's not a lack of mobility or power. I have all of that. And you'll be surprised at the amount of power, mobility, strength that you actually would need to throw, 95 plus isn't as much as you would think. You don't have to be an absolute stud, squatting 600 pounds to be able to do that. If you have a good strength base, I've made a couple videos about this, about the strength base, then you're good to go, okay? The last piece of it becomes heavily focusing on mechanical patterning, okay? And what does this actually mean? Well, your throwing program should be dedicated towards making a mechanical adjustment, okay? Making a mechanical change that is going to help you transfer more energy up the chain into your arm, okay? And I'll give you an example. So for me right now, right, I'm working on my lower body. And so I'm working on my drive leg, how my drive leg is acting, and one of my big things is that I get too deep, right? And so I want to be a little bit more shallow with it, but a lot more explosive. I want to feel that impulse and go type thing, okay? And so That's why I'm doing a bunch of drills to actually address that. Like there's no point in me doing like pull downs and plyo velos at this point because I need to improve how I move, right? My mechanical efficiency to throw 100+ miles an hour. It's not, oh, I need to increase my intent or anything like that. My intent's already good. You know, this is what we would do only if you're a little bit more of a novice athlete who's never really thrown hard before, needs to learn how to really fire their body. But when you're like a high level 90+, and you're trying to get to 95, even 100, like it should all be mechanical patterning based, okay? And so it should be, okay, for today, I'm focusing on this mechanical pattern. It might be lower body impulse, back leg impulse, and that's all I'm gonna focus on, okay? And the other part to this is the autonomous nature of it. And so for me, I don't have set days of like, oh, Monday I need to go 100%, Wednesday I need to go 100%, Friday I need to go 80%, none of that. It's more autonomous. It's more like what I was doing with the long toss where, okay, if I feel good, then I'll push it a little bit. If I don't, then I'll keep it light. And I also use the Whoop band that actually helps me. If I have really good recovery and I feel good, okay, let's push it a little bit. Okay, if I don't have good recovery, I feel bad, then I'm not gonna push it, you know. And why I do this is because at this point, for me to get to 100, again, I need to piece everything up on the mount, right? It's a lot about mechanical patterning. And when you go 100%, right? If I were to do something like this, then it's very hard to make mechanical changes, because, especially on the mount, right? If you're doing drills that are actually targeting the mechanical patterns that you're trying to make, then yes, you can go 100% and that'll help you a lot. But for example, me, I'm going off the mound right now. And if I start throwing 100% max effort, then all of the mechanical changes that I'm trying to make are gonna go out the window because I'm gonna revert back to what I know best, which is my old mechanics to accomplish that task of throwing as hard as I can, right? If I'm trying to make a mechanical change of feeling this back leg impulse, but then, you know, I'm not seeing the velocity go up because, you know, I'm still not used to that, right? Because I still need to pattern that and ingrain that. It takes a little bit of time for that mechanical patterning to actually take it actually takes a little bit of time for this mechanical pattern to, you know, show a positive result, right? And so if I'm not seeing the velo go up, then I'm just gonna revert, right? I'm gonna revert to my old mechanics to try to see the velo go up. And so I don't really do too much 100% days because all I'm focused on is how efficient I'm moving, okay? And so again, it's autonomous. If I'm feeling really good, my recovery is really good, I could potentially go at a 90% 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, because it's very autonomous. I'm probably not 3 days in a row. I might go 2 days and then I'll go light, but it's a lot about how my body is feeling, really knowing how my arm and my body responds, right, and my recovery, and then I go from there, okay? And you know, this isn't something that we program with a lot of our athletes because, you know, a lot of guys don't have the discipline to go light, right? It's actually the opposite of guys just go hard too often if they're autonomous, right? They're like, oh, you know, I don't feel too great, but, you know, I'm just gonna still throw 90%. And that just tanks your recovery. And so that's not something that we wanna do. But for me, this is something that I'm doing, which is I'm very mechanical patterning based. I'm not even doing 100% days anymore because I'm trying to improve my mechanical efficiency, right? And it's more of an autonomous thing where it's flowing. There's no set structure to it. It's more about how I'm feeling and pushing on the days that I feel good and not pushing on the days that I don't feel good, okay? Now, I promise that I'll give you the recommended throwing program that you should follow, okay? And so this is a little bit difficult, but this is kind of like the framework that we use at the Pitch Lab, okay? And so firstly, this is what I would recommend. So we definitely want the mechanical patterning, right? Identify your biggest thing that you need to work on from a mechanical perspective. If you need help with this, you can book a call with us and we'll be able to figure it out with you and help you identify that biggest mechanical thing. But firstly, you do want to identify that because movement efficiency and mechanics is king, right? Especially with pitching, that is king. Like you need to move well to throw hard. And so identify what you need to pattern first, okay? Now the second thing that I will do is incorporate some of these high CNS type throwing, right? To teach you intent, but with a caveat. And so you're gonna do drills that are actually gonna help you with these mechanical patterns. Okay, so if you're having trouble, getting your hips through, you might do something like a turn and burn, where you're right here, you're backpedaling, and then you're learning how to get your hips through before your upper half, and then throw. Okay, I wouldn't just jump into pull downs without having any type of intention behind it. I do love pull downs, especially for something like lead leg block, right? If you suck at blocking all your force, then this is gonna teach you how to do that real quick, because you're running towards the target as quickly as you can, and then you're gonna block all of that force with your front leg, right, to throw hard. And so that's the only reason why I would start doing pull downs and stuff like that. But you want to identify what your mechanical deficiency is, attack that with drills, right, that will actually help that. And I would even put in weighted balls here as well, okay? So with your plyos and everything like that, you're doing drills that are going to address the mechanical deficiency that you have, okay? And then with this, yeah, I could sprinkle that in, but this isn't as important. Like, just stay athletic, stay athletic and, play catch, and make sure that you don't lose that athleticism, because if you become a PO and you're not athletic and stuff, it's just going to be a disservice to you. Okay, and so this is the formula that I would kind of use, is make sure you stay athletic. This is really, really, really important. Athleticism just helps in your pitching delivery in all aspects, right? It helps you just be coordinated, express power, transfer energy up the train. It helps with everything. Athleticism is really, really important. And mechanical patterning. So with this is high CNS type throwing, weighted ball drills, all of that stuff that you want to do to actually pattern to become better movers on the mound, right? And I know this is tough, especially if you're trying to figure it out on your own. So again, first link in the description if that's something that you need help with. But this is the formula we kind of use at the Pitch Lab. This is the one that I feel like is the best right now to follow. It's the framework that makes the most sense, right, for guys who are trying to get to the next level, gain velocity, all of that. And I would use more of like a structured, schedule. I wouldn't go autonomous, just because we want to make sure that we do get our recovery in, right? And if I were to visualize it, I would want it something like this, where if you're doing a high intent day, right, a high CNS type day, where you're putting a lot of effort in, it might be a 90 to 100% day, then the next day you want it to be low, like a 30% day, 30 to 50%, okay? And then now that you're kind of recovered, you can go a little bit heavier with like a 70% day, and then, okay, let's recover again, 30 to 50, and then now you're ready to go high up again at 90 to 100, okay? And this is what would kind of repeat, and this is what I'll do. Like, this might be a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But again, I would really highly advise against just jumping into these and just brute forcing it, because that's what can really be dangerous. Make sure you take more of a smart approach with, staying athletic, right, firstly, and then patterning what you need to, identifying your mechanical deficiencies and attacking that to your fullest extent. If this is something you need help with, you can book a call, first link in the description below, and we'll come up with a plan for you.